Hi everyone. First essay in this class is the film review, and this semester we are watching and reviewing George Romero's 1968 classic, Night of the Living Dead. Your review needs to have some kind of judgment of the film. You don't need a thesis statement really, but it does need to be clear to me what it is you think of the film by the time you finish your review. Now you weren't summarizing the film, and I'm going to repeat that, because every semester that I teach this assignment, I get a handful of students that will end up just summarizing the film. Please don't summarize the film. I've watched this film over 100 times, and I get a little salty when I read reviews of a film I've watched that much. You are judging the film based on criteria that you identify and that you think are fair and relevant to the film that you're analyzing, Night of the Living Dead. So let's talk a little bit about those criteria. So for one, the criteria need to be fair. Night of the Living Dead was a DIY film that was filmed on a shoestring budget, and I think they spent roughly $110,000 on this film. It was done by a group of filmmakers that had no experience putting together feature-length films. I think all their experience was in commercials before they made this film. It was filmed on the outskirts of Pittsburgh, and a lot of the people who donated to make the film happen, they ended up playing zombies, they ended up doing hair and makeup, some of them ran camera equipment and lighting equipment. So it wouldn't be fair to judge the film on its special effects or its production value. And just so you know, special effects are not very special. It's certainly unfair to judge the film and compare it against films like 28 Days Later, The Walking Dead, or other zombie media. So the criteria that you choose have to be a good fit. They have to be fair to the film that you're analyzing. A little bit more about the criteria you choose. So once you have those criteria, you use evidence and detail from the film to support your thoughts and your opinion about the film based on the criteria that you've chosen. If you're writing about why you thought the film was good or bad or maybe mixed, it doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other. You can say it does well in this category and maybe not so well in these other categories. There should be a general, on the whole, what do you think of the film? So if you're judging the film based on maybe the suspense that it builds or the pacing of the film, you say it does either a good, bad, or mixed job based on that criteria, you're going to need to describe key scenes where you think the film is either paced too quickly or too slowly, or maybe you think it was just right. Those descriptions are key. If you just say the film's pacing was great because the action ramps up in a way that you really like, you're not really you're telling me something. You're not really showing me anything. You're not helping me see or hear what it is you're talking about. So I need you to show me using details from the film. Maybe something like, the film's pacing really improved when Ben meets Mr. Cooper, and their confrontation builds suspense, particularly in the scene where Ben slaps Mr. Cooper. Maybe you get in there and you describe like where the characters are positioned, what they say to each other, and what happens when Ben actually hits Mr. Cooper. So to summarize, you're going to choose criteria to judge the film. You're going to make sure that those criteria are fair for the film that you're judging and when it was produced, and you use details from the film to support your review. One criteria I think about when I watch this film is about how the film portrays race. In the era in which it was produced, Night of the Living Dead was way ahead of its time in how it represented African Americans. The protagonist is a black man, and the film does not spend too much time dwelling on that fact. He's a strong character, and he doesn't really take shit from anybody that's around him. So for me, I really like the film because of that. So if my criteria was how it represents race, I would take a look at Ben. I would take a look at how the white characters are represented in the film. And I think that there's interesting things there as well. But I think you could also take a look at the film and say it doesn't do a really good job of representing women. For example, you meet Barbara at the beginning of the film. And Barbara is, I think, we're all going to probably agree that she's a pretty weak character. She faints, she can't really do much, she screams a lot, so much screaming. And she's definitely no Michonne from The Walking Dead for me. So for me, I did not like Barbara all that much. There's maybe other examples I would use to show why, looking at that criteria, how the film represents gender, I don't think the film does a very good job. Those are for me. You have to choose your own criteria and back up your thoughts based on examples and details from the film. The prompt for the film review mentions other ideas that you'll need to keep in mind, and we're going to cover those in the next week or two. In your review, you'll need to show me that you can revise, not just edit or proofread. You'll need to integrate 2 quotes from reviews others have written about Night of the Living Dead, and you'll need to show me that you can write well-developed paragraphs. That also goes with supporting your review with details. You need good-sized paragraphs that have good detail and good discussion about those details. To a lesser extent, I'll be taking a look at MLA page and in-text formatting, accurate use of film terminology, and making sure that you have an engaging and useful introduction that kind of sets up the film, sets up the review, talks about the film's production, cast, and plot, and justifies the criteria that you're going to use to judge the film. Those are the less important criteria for me taking a look at this assignment. The film review is one of my favorite assignments to teach, particularly Night of the Living Dead, because I'm always surprised what students bring to a film that is over 50 years old. The film's a really important one too, and I enjoy teaching it as well, particularly because Halloween's coming up and all that. But the film has influenced a whole genre of films and was part of the punk DIY culture of the late 60s and early 70s that gave birth to bands like the Misfits. So it's a really influential film. Reach out to me if you have any questions about this assignment. This week is important because you're going to be learning about the really important criteria that I'm going to use to evaluate your essay and say it's on the B contract or not. And you want to get that first essay under your belt and get it satisfying the B contract as quickly as you can so that you can move on to the other assignments and you don't have to keep looking back at this assignment once we're working on like the rhetorical analysis. So that's it for now. Reach out to me if you have questions. I'll talk to you soon.